One of my favorite characters of Mushoku Tensei is easily Zanoba Sharon. He is just kind of an oddity. And I've always loved the relationship that Rudius has with Zanoba, and the idea that despite the fact that most people would see Zanoba as dangerous, he's a blessed child, he's killed before, and he's a little off, Rudius is always given the benefit of the doubt. And unfortunately, with one skip chapter of the anime adaptation of the series, we get to see a rare case where Rudius is actually terrified of the action that Zanoba takes. Something that absolutely catches him off guard and shows him sort of the danger of how Zanoba sees things completely different than he does. Ultimately getting into that conflict that Rudius has in how this world is so much different than the world that he came from. Additionally, in this skip chapter, we get a little bit of insight into what Zanoba is working on that ultimately does benefit Nanahoshi and possibly can help them in the future. But welcome back to yet another Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation skipped content video. In this one, we're going to be going over the skip chapter Interlude Master-Servant Relations. So let's jump right into it. Open up the chapter, we go back in time to a week before Nanahoshi had a breakdown, zeroing in on a little bit of research that Zanoba has been doing that actually helped her with her breakthrough with the summoning circle. As a reminder, Rudius had just recently got a new home where they discovered this cleaning doll, and that doll was then given to Zanoba to research to figure out how it works. The moment Rudius enters Zanoba's laboratory, Zanoba called out to him with excitement, trotting over with a box in his arms and his face shining with pride. On Rudius inquired what he had, Zanoba set the box down on a nearby table before taking out its contents. It was a long, slender object covered in cloth. Unwrapping it, he revealed the artificial arm in question. He had sliced it up into sections like a carrot. Zanoba then said, "When I looked closely at the places where the paint had chipped off, I noticed it looked like seams in its surface. I tried cutting along them just to see what might happen, and this is what I found." Picking up one of the slices, Zanoba turned it so Rudius could see the cross sections. It was covered in intricate patterns that reminded him of a QR code. Rudius figured this had to be a magic circle of some kind, but it was a peculiar one, totally unlike anything that Nanahoshi had made. It wasn't just the cross sections either. Similar patterns were present on every section of the arm and the back surfaces, and they were all slightly different from each other. Even the ones that shared a section weren't identical. Rudius spoke up. "Wow, okay. I didn't expect the arms to be packed full of magic circles, honestly. It's interesting that they're all so different from each other too." After looking at him for a while, Rudius started feeling a little queasy. It was almost as if he was studying the nervous system of a dissected human body. "I had no idea there were even seams on that thing. They must have been really subtle." Zanoba replied, "Well, they were mostly hidden by paint. It would have been impossible to notice them without first chipping it away." This was Zanoba's first big breakthrough in his research, and he was obviously excited about it. Rudius wasn't quite as jazzed, since he had assumed from the start there would be some sort of complex magical technology animating the thing. Rudius then said, "Its movements were very smooth and coordinated. Now that I think about it, I guess you need a lot of magic circles to make that possible." Zanoba replied, "Oh? Can you tell what functions these patterns would perform, Master?" "Nope, never seen anything like them before." Rudius wondered if all these circles were necessary just to move an arm. Perhaps it needed a chain of magic circles all throughout its body to control and coordinate its movements? There was always a chance that these served some totally different function too. It was impossible to tell without further research. Before they encountered the doll, it was wandering around the house every night, cleaning up and attacking threats that it identified. Once its cleaning was over, it returned to the basement to recharge. It was some complex behavioral patterns, and much smarter than your average robot vacuum. Well, also significantly more violent too. Not something you would create by etching a couple magic circles on a head or torso. Rudius's goal wasn't just to create a magical Roomba. He wanted to make dolls that could move. He wanted some for himself, and some to sell for profit. They definitely command a high price on the market. While Rudius wasn't wanting to be a millionaire or anything, he just wanted some financial security. If he got himself a massive windfall, he'd probably just get careless and squander it away. He also had his work to improve the reputation of his purge to consider, although that was a separate issue. In any case, this is all just a pipe dream for the moment, but maybe one day he'd have a robot made of his dreams. Rudius spoke to Zanoba. "I'm guessing the magic circles most directly responsible for the movements are probably in its head or torso. Try to be careful when you cut there." Zanoba replied, "Of course, Master." Thinking back on this moment, Rudius believed this discovery was the reason Zanoba was able to come up with a helpful suggestion when Nanahoshi had her meltdown later. Thanks to that suggestion, Nanahoshi succeeded in creating her own multi-layered magic circles. She even realized her goal of summoning things from a parallel universe. One day, they would surely realize their own dream of creating a perfect made robot. With that in mind, Rudius had a bit more spring in his step every time he visited Zanoba's lab. Yeah, this stuff is super fascinating. What it essentially is implying here is that this doll they got from Rudius's house when he bought it, it pretty much has like all these layers on the skin itself. They're peeling away these layers, and there's layers upon layers of magic circles just surrounding its body. Obviously, creating sort of a circuitry, is the best way that I can think of it. Is like it seems like it's like a circuitry that just plays through the entire system, and it all communicates with each other, which makes sense because if you put just a circle on the head or something like that, it just kind of affects it. Whereas when you have the entire body, it's kind of bringing like all that mana through the body as like he points it, like a nervous system. It's really fascinating stuff. And yes, it makes sense that that is what Zanoba is, and essentially brings to Cliff, and they talk about that and they give it to Nanahoshi, is this idea of layering the magic circles, which essentially is what Nanahoshi does. We then cut forward in time to the point which Ginger, Zanoba's faithful knight, had arrived in Renoa along with Norn and Aisha and reserved before he left. Reese went to visit Zanoba's lab again, and upon entering, he found himself face to face with a woman standing guard at the entrance. She wasn't a supermodel, but she had a kind face. "Oh, hey Ginger, it's good to see you again." The woman studied Rudius's face with suspicion, but when he greeted her, she relaxed and bowed her head slightly. "Hello, Sir Rudius. It's been too long." Her name was Ginger York, and she was a former knight of Chiron and the loyal bodyguard of the third Prince Zanoba. Seeing her again made Rudius feel nostalgic. "I meant to stop by and say hello," Ginger continued, "but things have been a bit hectic. Don't worry about it. I should have come over myself, honestly. You escorted my sisters free of charge, and I didn't even take the time to thank you." She replied, "I ought to be thanking you. Miss Aisha saved us a great deal of time on our journey." Ginger stepped aside with a smile, and Rudius headed into Zanoba's laboratory. Zanoba and Julie were hard at work on their own projects as always. Zanoba was sketching diagrams of magic circles he had found on the doll, and Julie was working on her latest figurine with a small chisel. That project looked close to completion, so Rudius headed over to inspect it first. "How's it coming along, Julie?" "I think it should be done soon, Grandmaster." "What do you think?" "Hey, that's not half bad. It looks a little too handsome to be Zanoba, though." "That's not true. Master's handsome, too." Her sculpting was still a bit sloppy, but she was starting to get a good grasp on the fundamentals. He could offer a few criticisms on the fine details, but since the kids seemed to have a knack for this, he decided it was probably better to let her keep figuring things out for herself. Reese then glanced over Zanoba's direction, before noticing Ginger staring at him. "What is it, Ginger?" "Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking, you've done a lot of growing up, that's all." "Well, of course I did. It's been, 4 years since the last time we saw each other?" Reese felt like there was a lot of people commenting on his appearance lately. Maybe he was starting to develop a sex appeal or something. If he hadn't married Sylphie, maybe he could have built himself a harem. The idea had a certain appeal, but it would probably be stressful in practice. He was satisfied with his sex life as it was anyways. "By the way, Ginger, what do you plan to do next?" "I intend to stay here, at Prince Zanoba's side." "Oh, so you're assuming your duties as his bodyguard?" "That's right. I've completed my other mission, and my family back home is being taken care of." The woman's loyalty really was impressive. Yeah, that's kind of shocking, leaving her family behind. She'd protected Lilia and Aisha for years at her master's command, before finally seeing them to safety. Had Zanoba shown her any appreciation, though? Or even thanked her? Probably not. The guy wasn't the most thoughtful of employers. Reese then spoke to Zanoba. "Hey, Zanoba, don't you think you should give Ginger a reward for all of her hard work?" Ginger responded in protest. "Sir Rudius, I wouldn't presume to ask." "I suppose you're right," Zanoba said, still focused on his magic circles. "Is there anything you desire, Ginger? Speak freely." He could sure sound pompous when he wanted to. Ginger seemed taken aback by this development. This was presumably the first time Zanoba had given her any sort of recognition for her efforts. After thinking on it for a few moments, she dropped to one knee, lowered her head, and spoke. "Well then, my lord, would you allow me to see to Julie's education? I understand that she is Sir Rudius's pupil, but her manners ill befit the servant of a prince." "Very well, I'll allow it. Thank you, Prince Zanoba." This really wasn't what Rudius had in mind. Educating Julie was really to the benefit of Zanoba, not Ginger. Then again, Rudius figured there was some sort of unspoken rule that slaves weren't supposed to receive too much education. Humanity was driven out of the Garden of Eden because they ate of the fruit of knowledge. Stay ignorant, and you might be perfectly happy spending the rest of your life dancing around with a fig leaf over your crotch saying "Yatta" all day. That was why kings prefer to have their subjects be clueless as possible. The less you educate them, the less likely they would rise up against you. Of course, you're also sabotaging their ability to learn new skills and become more useful. But that's the trade-off lots of rulers are willing to take. In any case, Rudius guessed that it would have been tricky for Zanoba to grant Ginger a more typical reward, like land or treasure anyways. Given his current position, she probably realized that and kept her request modest out of loyalty. Rudius spoke up. "Well, alright then. Back to the grind, I guess. How far have you gotten?" "I was planning on working on the legs next, Master." "Yeah, I've been thinking about that. And I feel like it might be better for us to thoroughly study the circles from inside the arms first. I mean, it's not like you can piece the body parts back together once you cut them open, right? Might be better to take it slow." That is true. Maybe we can bring Cliff and Nanahoshi in to take a look. They might notice something that we're missing." Zanoba and Rudius leaned over the table to discuss their plans in length, before ultimately deciding to start dissecting the doll's second arm for comparison first. Just as they were about to get started, Rudius noticed Ginger standing right next to him. It looked like she had something to say. "Do you need something, Ginger?" "Sir Rudius, despite his current circumstances, Prince Zanoba is a member of the royal family of Chiron. I know he's your pupil as an artist, but the way that you speak to him still strikes me as less than respectful." Now that she had mentioned it, He was being more casual than usual with Zanoba today. He was normally more formal in his speech, but after Aisha's remark, he unconsciously loosened up. It made sense that a loyal retainer would be annoyed to hear their master addressed in that way. He'd have to be a bit more polite whenever Ginger was around. I suppose you're right. Sorry about that. Prince Zanoba's been a good friend to me. So I guess Before Ruiz could finish his sentence, Zanoba jumped to his feet with fury in his eyes. Screaming Ginger's name, he sprinted towards her, grabbed her by the neck, and slammed her against the wall. Julie flinched at the sound and dropped her chisel. How dare you? Master Ruiz has finally opened up to me. And now you've ruined everything. How could you? Take it back. Apologize to him immediately. Ginger was gasping and looked in serious pain. Was he actually squeezing her neck? This escalated way too fast. Zanoba, Ruiz shouted. Stop it. Let her go. Zanoba immediately let her go. His fingers left clear red marks on her skin. Ginger tried to reach up to touch her neck, but stopped halfway, grimacing in pain. It looked like he had broken a bone in her shoulder when he slammed her against the wall. Ruiz quickly rushed over and healed her with magic. And as soon as he was done, Ginger kneeled down in front of him with her head lowered. My sincerest apologies, Sir Rudius. She was actually apologizing to him. After Zanoba nearly killed her, Ruiz was speechless with guilt for the moment. She hadn't done anything wrong, so he couldn't understand why she was apologizing to him. Ruiz then spun around and glared at Zanoba. What's the matter with you? But master, she thoughtlessly interjected, knowing nothing of our friendship. Okay, maybe so. Why don't you just say that to her then? Ruiz knew that Ginger had served Zanoba faithfully for so many years, and she protected Ruiz's family on a long, dangerous journey through unfamiliar territory. It couldn't have been easy, but she'd come all the way out here, out of nothing but loyalty to her exiled master. When she made one single mistake, his reaction was to throw her against the wall and choke her. It was just awful. Their friendship was obviously very important to Zanoba. It was nice to know. But that didn't mean that he wanted Zanoba mistreating his most loyal guard over it. Ginger spoke up. Sir Rudius, please. It's quite all right. I'm proud to see Prince Zanoba standing up for a friend. He's clearly grown as a person since the last time I saw him. Rudius shocked that he was being seen as the weird one here. Maybe it wasn't his place to say anything, but Ginger obviously deserved much better treatment than this. Zanoba. Yes, master? I consider you a good friend. Zanoba's face shone with happiness at those words. Rudius paused to let him savor it. But I owe Ginger a lot for protecting my family too. She stuck with him for what? 4 years? I'm really grateful to her for that, and I'd appreciate if you'd treated her with much more kindness. Of course, master. Zanoba's face shifted to a serious expression. I apologize for my actions, Ginger. There's no need to apologize, Prince Zanoba. I've sworn an oath of absolute loyalty to you, and I'm willing to die at your command. My remark was thoughtless. I sincerely regret what I said. That seemed to be her final word on things, and Rudius seen no point in dragging out any longer. This is evidently just how master-servant relationships worked here. What if Zanoba made a serious mistake, though? Could Ginger bring herself to disagree with him? That all said, Rudius was an outsider here. He didn't understand how things worked in Sharon, and if he kept butting in, he'd probably just invite more trouble. That alarming incident aside, their research on the automaton was starting to show real progress. Getting back to work, Rudius spoke up. I know I suggest focusing on the arms for now, but it's your call. Go with whatever you think is best. I appreciate that, but I agree with your suggestion, Master. Piecing the entire doll back together after we dissected it might prove difficult. Let's see if we can recreate the arm before moving on to the rest. They spent the rest of the session focused on disassembling and studying the doll's arm. Ruiz suggested bringing it to Cliff or Nanahoshi to help, but he was leaving those decisions entirely up to Zanoba. There were some things that Ruiz wanted to try out, of course, but it seemed like he was making good progress on his own so far, so he didn't want to meddle. I think you can leave the rest to me, Master. It seems I have a talent for this kind of work, Zanoba said. Huh? No kidding? No, I was a bit surprised as well, but I find the work quite engaging. I'm enjoying myself quite a lot these days. Zanoba got to spend a whole day on his research that appealed to him, with a dedicated figurine artist working constantly at his side. This was probably as good as it got for Zanoba. Still, what was he planning to do once he graduated? Would he keep hanging around the city and playing with dolls? Well, that was another thing that he had to figure out on his own. It wasn't really Rudius' problem to worry about, even if Zanoba was here, in part, because of him. Well, okay then, keep at it, Zanoba. I'll stop by again soon. I look forward to that, Master. Be nice to Ginger, okay? Of course. At this rate, maybe they have another breakthrough before too long. And that is Interlude Master-Servant Relations. Such a good chapter. Yes, on one part, this is a lot to do with the actual doll they're currently taking apart, all the layers of it, and kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty of what seems to make it, this sort of nervous system that kind of pieces all it together, these magic circles that makes it move, which, like I said earlier, is something that ends up being used with the summoning circle for Nanahoshi, where she's actually layering the magic circle in order to produce something. But again, it's something that they're constantly kind of getting into in order to provide that for something else. Their research is sort of kind of coinciding with each other. And I've always liked that about Cliff, Zanoba, and Nanahoshi. The three of them are all working on different projects at the university, and they're all somehow kind of adding to each other, and they're enhancing each other, and they're able to give their research to each other in order to benefit each other. But yeah, like I said, the the nugget really here is seeing how Zanoba reacts to, yes, his new relationship with Rudius. He's super happy that he's getting so close to his master. Like, him and Rudius are becoming such good friends that the moment that Ginger shows up again and she's like, wait, that's not how you treat Zanoba, he gets furious. Like, I'm getting so close to being super buddy-buddy with Rudius, and you're messing it up. It's like, again, it shows what he kind of cares about. Like, he's so tunnel vision into his research, the figurines, and Rudius. And anything gets in the way of that, he gets upset. I mean, he did it with the whole situation when they went to the market. When they went to the market and somebody completely ignores Rudius, he gets angry. Anybody disrespects Rudius, Zanoba gets angry. Rudius means, like, so much to him. And the unfortunate thing that comes from that is, yes, the aspect that Zanoba he thinks different. I wouldn't say that he's, like, dumb or anything like that. He's just different. He just thinks different. He works different. He's got his focus and everything. And the way that he responds to things is very foreign. And like I said, I always love the fact that Rudius sort of works around that. Despite that most people fear Zanoba and push him away, Rudius is trying to figure him out and accept him for what he is. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that when Zanoba does something that just seems so bad, like mistreating Ginger, that Rudius is very grateful to. Again, Ginger took his Lilia and Aisha all the way down to Millis for them, took them to Paul, and then journeyed with Paul all the way to the port. And that was the point in which they sent Aisha and Norn up, and then she went with them all the way up north. Like, she's been sticking with his family and protecting them for a long time. And she didn't ask for anything. She was just doing it as a duty to Zanoba, and then initially to get to Zanoba. But she did it, and Rudius is very grateful of that. And now Zanoba's doing something terrible to her. He feels bad for her. He doesn't understand the master-servant relationship. And he doesn't understand what is normal to them is to Rudius just thoughtless and terrible. And I like that he at least speaks up and says, no, dude, I respect her for what she did for me. And I owe her a lot. Don't mistreat her. And so it completely shifts how he treats her. Like, okay, you're right. And he immediately pivots on it. Not that he's like, oh my gosh, you've opened my eyes, master. It's just, okay, I understand. He doesn't seem like he actually knows what Rudius is saying. I mean, Rudius has expressed that to him, but it's not as if he's going, okay, let me break this down in my head. Yeah, I'm a terrible person for doing that. No, he just says, understood. Sorry, Ginger. And it's probably obviously very shocking to Ginger because that's my master. He's not supposed to say things like that. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to listen to whatever he says. It's completely breaking that for them as well. But yes, this also opened the door to why Ginger is helping Julie out with her studies, with her manners and everything like that. She's sort of, through that favor from Zanoba, allowed to kind of help guide Julie into doing exactly what she's supposed to do. But anyways, incredible little chapter. I really like it. I always get really sad whenever they skip like character-focused chapters because it gives you so much more insight into those characters and their relationships. And this is honestly kind of a big deal in my opinion. Not like it breaks the story, but I think this stuff is all kind of enhances the story to a benefit. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this skip chapter video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you thought of this chapter. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button, subscribe my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Also, I do skip content videos for the Mushoku Tensei series, as well as impressions on the anime series as it airs. Also, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, so thanks, membership button below. Greatly appreciate what it does. Take care.